All right, thank you. So, okay, so had to turn that down a little bit because the beat was a little overbearing on that. So here we are. Again, this is the summer 2019 sale from Sentai Filmworks. I posted a picture a while back on Twitter when I got the order, and someone asked me, what I got. And so I was like, you know what? I got I got like 30 titles. I'll make a video about it. But again, this was in 2019. Here we are, early 2020, and I'm just not getting around to it, so I apologize. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get to this. So this is going to be very raw. Here is the invoice for this order. It is 2 pages of titles. Again, I think it was only 30 titles, if I'm not mistaken. I grabbed a couple titles that I knew, some I've already seen before, some that I just knew about the titles from titles that I've read. So without further ado, let's kind of just get into this. So we're just gonna reach into the box, grab a title out, and kind of show it off. So here it is. First one is Higurashi Nonago no Kureni, or When They Cry. Blu-ray box set. Funny thing is, I just realized that I believe I already own this. So yeah, that's see if you can get a good look at the artwork on that here. Okay, turn it around. Let's just see the back. Right. So this is the complete season 1 through 3 collection. 9 disc set, 55 episodes, 3 seasons. Has clean opening, clean closing, and clean opening and closing animations. Sentai Filmworks trailer. 1400 minutes. This is very mature. A lot of murder going on in this title. So let's put it to the side now. Next up, just into the box. And what we have here is 40 episodes, 7 disc, and that is, if you can see this, there it is, The World Only God Knows. Step back. Artwork there. Hold on. The light is really strong on this, and so the reflection off the plastic is a little hard there. But reading this one, special features on this is the Japanese promos, music videos, clean opening animation, clean closing animation, and also available from Sentai Filmworks. So basically, trailers of other titles that Sentai Filmworks has produced. It is only 1,000 minutes comparatively. So again, these are 2 complete sets here. So this is 12 episodes on season 1, 12 episodes in season 2, 4 OVA episodes, and then Goddesses 12 episodes. So that has less airtime than this one. This is 40 episodes and this is 55 episodes, but it's only 400 minutes between them. It's kind of crazy. Moving on. Reaching into the box again. From Sentai Filmworks, this is The Problem Children Are Coming From Another World, aren't they? Or Mon Daiji Tachi ga Isekai Karu Kuru So desu yo. This is complete collection plus OVA. This story I've seen this one again, one I've already seen before. Kind of ended abruptly. So I feel like I should probably go read this and to experience a little bit more of the contents as they come through on this. This is a Kadokawa, but it is also through Sentai Filmworks. 275 minutes. It's 10 episodes and 2 OVA and OVA on 2 disc. Runtime is only 275 minutes. Special features on this are Problem Children bumpers, TV spot, Blu-ray spots, promo video, clean opening and closing animation, and trailers from Sentai Filmworks, again, of other titles that they're working on. So I'll let you get a look at that cover art there. And then back case art. All right, moving on. Reaching into the box again. Again, I ordered like 30 titles, so we're in for a long haul here. This is. Oh wait, hold on. Well, whatever. It's how I grabbed it. So this is Medaka Box Abnormal. So if I'm not mistaken, this is season 2 of Medaka Box. And I think it says it right here. Yeah, season 2, 12 disc on 2 disc, 12 episodes on 2 disc. Runtime 300 minutes. Includes all 12 episodes on 2 disc. Rating on this one is TV 14. The world God only knows is rated TV 14, and for the Problem Children, it is TV 14. It's for dialogue on those two, and then I think Medaka was for violence. Reaching into the box again. All right, so here we have Samurai Bride. So the complete collection. So this is all 12 episodes, 2 disc set. Includes 12 episodes on 2 discs, 300 minutes for airtime. So we'll get that artwork. Get that back case artwork. Samurai Bride, another title I've actually already read by Sentai Filmworks. Seen by Sentai Filmworks. I've already seen the animation, but I decided, put it in my actual collection. Next in the box, we have Queen's Blade. So, Queen's Blade, Beautiful Warriors, complete OVA collection. So this isn't even a canon storyline. This is actually 6 discs. So this is 6 episodes, 1 disc, clean closing animation, Sentai trailers, and 180 minutes of runtime. So here is the front cover for that. I thought this was actually Queen's Blade, but this is actually just an OVA disc. I didn't even realize that when I bought it. Okay, moving on. Next item out of the box is Samurai Girls. So, not to be confused with Samurai Bride. So, Samurai Bride, if I'm not mistaken, is the continuation of Samurai Girls. This is the ending of this series. Yeah, except for, oh no, they're both okay. I didn't look at the ratings on these. So let's go. Hold on, the artwork show off for Samurai Girls. I believe this story follows Yagyu Jubei. I'm sorry, I'm mixing up names so bad. I'm sorry. My apologies there. It is 300 minutes, all 12 episodes on 2 discs. So this one is for violence and dialogue. It's rated TVMA. And then this one is for violence, sexual. I think that's what S stands for. Or so suggestive, sorry. So it's violence, suggestive themes, and dialogue. So both rated TVMA. Both by Showgate and Sentai Filmworks. Then let's see. Sorry, special features. I didn't do this on both of them. So special features on the first series: narrated comics, Blushing Maidens in the Pact, Japanese promotional videos, Japanese TV promos, uncensored production sketches, clean opening and closing, and trailers. Then the second one, special features, is Samurai Bride shorts, Japanese preview, Japanese Blu-ray promos, clean opening animations, closing animations, and Sentai trailers. So again, other titles from Sentai Filmworks. That is. So far, we've only gone through 7 titles out of 30. So, moving on. Next title we have here is... oh, yeah. No, sorry. I was about to say the Japanese title. The Quasar of Stigmata. I'm just going to say, Saikon no Quasar. So, this is 37 episodes. 2 seasons and special OVA on 3 discs. Runtime is only 925 minutes. Includes all 37 episodes on 3 discs. TVMA for violence, suggestive themes, and dialogue. It's clean opening, closing animations, and Sentai trailers. Here is the back artwork there. Moving on. Next item in the box. Gotta dig down deep on that one. This is Mysterious Girlfriend X. So I was reading Mysterious Girlfriend X for a little bit before they animated it. So being able to get a copy by Sentai Filmworks, I had to get that. So it's a complete collection on Blu-ray. It's 13 episodes on 2 discs. Special features include the Japanese promos, Japanese preview, the clean opening, closing animation, and again, trailers from Sentai Filmworks. It's just 325 minutes, rated TV MA for dialogue. Moving on, next item in the box, we have Scum's Wish. So Scum's Wish was produced by Yen Press. I know that one for a fact because I actually got into a discussion about this title with somebody working for Yen Press at SakuraCon one year, and we were both going just like really excited about this title because it's a really cool title. But apparently it was also animated. So when I saw that on the list for the summer sale from Sentai Filmworks, I had to go ahead and pick it up. So again, let me get the right angle. Front cover artwork and rear cover artwork. All right, so this is 300 minutes TV MA for dialogue and suggested themes. Includes 12 episodes on 2 discs. Special features are Japanese trailers, clean opening and closing animations, also available from Sentai Filmworks trailers. So again, trailers showcasing what other titles Sentai Filmworks is behind. Sorry, excuse me. All right, next title in the box. We have, what is this? Oh, Medica Box. So this is the first season here of, so sorry, no, this says season 1 and season 2, a complete collection. So I think I might have bought something extra. We'll find out. So unfortunately I'm gonna have to open these to know for sure. So see, 2 seasons, 24 episodes on 3 discs. Special features, clean opening and closing, the Medica Box Jump Festa promo, Medica Box teasers, Medica Box promo, Medica Box home video sports, Medica Box abnormal teaser, and Medica Box abnormal trailers. So I guess maybe this is actually a standalone title that's not connected to this, which means that I'm actually missing the first season of this. Well, again, it's 600 minutes here, 300 minutes here. Rated TV 14 for violence. Okay. Next time I'm gonna bring this box closer to me. All right. So here is my teen romantic comedy snafu 2. So if I'm not mistaken, this is the sequel to, yes, this is season 2 of my teen romantic comedy snafu. It's a really good story. I think I've already one of the titles I've already seen. This is by Sentai Filmworks, complete collection of the second season. So special features on this: clean opening, closing animations, special opening animation, and then Sentai trailers. 13 episodes, 325 minutes, TV 14 rated, TBS animation and Sentai Filmworks, and so this is tiny. It's Content Japan, I think is what that says. So that's actually a production I've never actually seen, really, because I never really looked at the box cases before like that. But so hold on, let me take a quick water break. Bear with me. My bad. All right, back in the box. All right, next title we have in here is Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions, Rika version. I actually don't know what this is. In all honesty, I know what Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions is, but I don't know what this Rika version is. Well, oh, okay, wait. I guess it's just the show from the perspective of Rika, which I'm not mistaken is main heroine in this story. So here is the cover art. Has her in a wedding dress. Here is the back cover art. Take a look. It's a Blu-ray and DVD combo. It is TV 14 rated. I don't know if you can hear background sound there. Let's see here. 96 minutes. Has English subtitles. Otherwise, it's in English or Japanese audio. What else we got here? Special features. There we go. Japanese previews, clean opening and closing animations, and then trailers from other shorts. It says also includes Love, Trinity Below Another Delusion's Light, My Brother 2 short. So there's a short film, I guess, in between the content of this story. So we'll drop that over there and back into the box. So what is this? Oh, Majikoyo Samurai Girls. Okay. Here is the cover art for Majikoyo Samurai Girls. This story is hilarious to me because the ending is just it's a harem anime, but the ending is too funny. So it says it's all 12 episodes on 2 disc set. Special features is 12 shorts. So I guess there's a short per episode. Cleaning, opening, and closing, Japanese promo spots, and then the Sentai trailers. 300 minutes. TV 14 for violence, suggestive themes, and dialogue. It says you're on your ancestors, but try not to let it kill you. Majikoyo Summer Girls is hilarious, bro. It's complete. It's like that storyline is so funny to me. My guys, like they're like, you know what? We need you to choose. Oh man, I don't want to ruin that in case somebody decides to watch that. Yes, Maria Holic. New English dub? Oh my. Okay, well hold on. Let's showcase that artwork. Cover art. And back cover. So complete collection, all 12 episodes on 2 disc set. Special features is the Club ATX interview, special Christmas night, Ame no Kisaki Holy Night Festival, and Japanese commercial collection, Japanese promotional video, clean closing animations. They don't have the opening animations closed. Okay, and then Sentai trailers. 300 minutes, TV 14 for dialogue. All right, next one is, if I can get my hand on it. My mental choices are completely interfering with my school romantic comedy. This is hilarious. Otherwise known as, if I can read that, Ore no. Oh god, I can't see that. I think that's Monai. Yes, Ore no Monai. No more. No nai. No nai. Sorry, my bad. Come in and say. It's Ore no nai Sintaku. Shiga. Sintakushi? Yeah, Sintakushi. Sorry, come in. So Ore no nai Sintakushi ga Gakuin no Nobu Kamiri o Shinroku de Jama Shiteiru. This includes the complete 11 episode series. It is TV 14 for dialogue, has 275 minutes, and clean opening animation for special features, Sentai trailers, and clean closing animation. Oh, this is another word in Content Japan and Kadokawa with Sentai Filmworks for production on that. Next in the box is Triage X. So Triage X is an amazing story. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? Is that Vino? So here is front cover for Triage X, and here is back cover for oh, you know what? I didn't show the cover for this. I'm sorry. Let me get back to this last title. Okay, but who asked? I like that. Hey, how's it going? All right, so back to Triage X. So Triage X has special features of cleaning, opening and closing animation, voice actor interview, Japanese promos, and then Sentai trailers for further. And then it is 275 minutes. This is rated TVMA for violence, language, suggestive and dialogue? Yeah, suggestive themes and dialogues. So it's 10 episodes plus an OVA on 2 disc. This is an amazing concept story that I came across the manga on and started reading it and animated it, so that was great too. Now I have the complete. What do we have here? Ah, I got this. Well, kind of just to show love. Like there was again, this was a sale for summer, and it was free shipping if you spend a certain amount of money. So I kind of just started grabbing titles because of the relevance, or because I kind of knew about them. So this is Lady Death. What mod? Is he like the guy? Oh, like the guy who pops his eyes out eating chicken? Okay. Well, think about that, okay? Yeah, I thought I turned Streamlabs off. What's the link you posted? Hold on. Yeah, I thought I had turned Streamlabs off so it would stop tell me stop punishing people for posting links. Yeah, see, it did. So that's why it's like it's having trouble saying it's having trouble functioning as intended. Just real quick, you guys can hear me over the music, right? Oh, I think I broke it. Oh, broke chat. My bad. Whoa, it don't work. Let's move that over here real quick and we'll refresh the page and it should come back. I don't know what happened to the dashboard there, or the pop out chat box, but I'm fixing it right now. We good? Oh yeah. So, do you did the Kunitoshi joke you, or are you talking about okay's name? I do like anime. Also like manga. Kunitoshi. So I'll get to that. Hold on. Let me get past this first layer of titles, and then I'll show you why where that name comes from in a second. So left off on Lady Death. Okay. So this is TV 14 for violence, suggestive themes, and language. It is runtime of hold on. This font is so tiny. Oh wow. So this has audio of English and German, with English subtitles for hearing impaired and German subtitles. I've actually met the creator of this character. I can't even think of his name right now. But this is brought by ADV Films, and Sentai Filmworks. Okay, here are the special features for this. Can I do ASMR, please? My narrator voice. I couldn't bring up the video. It froze out the chat box. When I do my air narrator voice, I guess that's kind of my ASMR. So like when I start reading stuff like Hope's life has literally gone to hell. Not only has she discovered that her father is actually Lucifer, but the Lord of Lies has also stolen the soul of her lover, Niccolo. I have not. Would you hold on? Let's see. But let me see. I think so. Hold on. I think we're done. So yeah, I didn't do this part yet. So special features. This lighting is so bad on this. Let me read out here. Visions of Hell featurette, which watch the evolution of the characters and key background designs. Animating Death featurette, interviews with the animation production team, and director's commentary. So that's what the special features are for Lady Death. I'll just turn down the music a little bit to see if that would help. My friend, I didn't really get a chance to see. So can you guys hear the music? No, you can't? Oh man, I thought you guys could hear this. Well, I guess it's just for me then. Oh, he was joking. Oh, gotcha. All right, so here is the actual Queen's Blade. So earlier in this video, I was showing off that I got this Queen's Blade, which is actually just the OVA of Queen's Blade. And then this is actually Queen's Blade, complete collection. So front and back artwork there. So this is, oh wow, it actually has 2 soundtrack CDs on it. So this is Queen's Blade Rebellion. Let's see, runtime is 300 minutes, TVMA rating. Cheese bot. Okay, is that the guy eating chicken wings and eyes popping out? You said I look like him. All right. Let's see, it's 12 episodes on 2 discs. Again, TVMA for violent, suggestive themes and dialogue. Special features are Queen's Blade audio dramas, Queen's Blade Omake, clean and opening and closing animation, and that's just kind of crazy. I didn't know this had 2 soundtrack discs on it. It's kind of dope. Moving on. All right. Next is Maria Holic Alive. So this is the sequel to this one. So oh, we should have to go to bed. All right, 5 a.m. All right, so let's see if I can get to work this time. Let me read this real quick, and then we'll move on to that. Okay, so special features, commentaries for all 12 episodes, Japanese TV promos, clean opening animations, clean closing animations, TV 14 for dialogue. So it's on 2 discs, 12 episodes. Let's see if I can get this to work. All right, it's up. So what I'm gonna do real quick is this. Catch up to the manga because wow, stuff is going down. Let me think. I'm trying to get this song to stop playing here so I can get the video up. You saying I look like this guy? Bring that down. Oh, it already. Hold on. Replay. So you're saying I look like this guy? So what if I did something like this? Now what? Does does it look? Does it look the same? Do we favor still? Does this? Is that? I don't. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. Oh, you want me to read? I just have the same song playing in the background. I can turn it off though. Like this. Oh, so before you go, then, so for my name, it's fine. It's fine. Hold on. Let me get the manga real quick. All right. So, I'm not 100% sure if this name is accurate from it because this is from a fan translation, but the name comes from the manga Aiki. When I went to Japan for Evo Japan 2019, I had to get my hands on the basically the complete collection as best as I could. I'm like short one book. I'm short book 7 out of the entire collection. So the main character, his name is Kunitoshi Jokyu. He is a oh, thanks for the follow. Uh, okay, but who asked? I might be able to get you that mod. I might, I might. So oh, thanks again for following. Is that a Slavinator? I just saw that. Really didn't pay attention to it, but thanks for stopping by for it too as well. So as you can see here, this is just the first. This is book 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. I have 1 through 13 and of Ike, and then Ike S. I have 1 through like 8. I might, we'll see, we'll see. You play your cards right, you might get it. Not like that or like that. It doesn't matter. I'll be right back. So I was gonna do another stream where I was gonna do like a little bit of story time, kind of discussing kind of what I did when I went to Japan. So I'll probably say that for like another day. But let's get back to this box. I'm actually not done with the unboxing. That was just the top layer. This is actually the last one up here. So some of you may already know this title. Can you eat a cucumber ASMR, please? I am not eating no cucumber unless you got some ranch. So this is Monster Musume. So Everyday Life with Monster Girls. Uh, this is the complete collection. So that is that's 12 episodes plus OVAs on 3 discs. Special features are clean opening, closing, music videos. Wow, it's music videos for this. Japanese TV spots, Japanese promo, Japanese Blu-ray promos, and also available from Sentai. So again, this is the one where they have the trailers for other titles that Sentai Filmworks does. While I try to sleep. The Toho animation, Sentai Filmworks is 350 minutes, TVMA rating for dialogue and suggestive themes. Let's see, Japanese and English audio, and English subtitles. Okay, so that is the top layer of this box of 30 titles. So, taking out the divider and getting to the bottom half here. All right, so let's get this out of here. All right, these are the bigger titles here. These are box sets typically. There's a few. Oh wait, hold on. Hold on, just saw something. All right, so you know how I had yeah, I messed up. In all honesty, I think I bought the same thing multiple times. Just to throw it out there. So here we go. So just gonna throw it out there again. So here we go. We have Medaka Box 1 complete set, which is season 1 and season 2 complete collection, right? 600 minutes. Then we have Medaka Box season 1 complete collection. Then we have Medaka Box Abnormal complete collection, which is season 2. So in all honesty, I'm not 100% sure, but I think these are duplicates altogether. Yo, what up? How you doing, Icefire? He wants me to do ASMR so he can go to sleep. You need that white noise. Well, whatever. Let's drop those off over there. Let's get into this. So, cover artwork for Medical Box. Back cover artwork. All right, so special features: clean opening, closing animation, Medical Box jump festive promo, Medical Box teasers, Medical Box promo, Medical Box home video spots, and the Medical Box abnormal teaser. So I really think I bought the same thing over and over. I literally think I have 2 copies of Medical Box. I only will be able to know if I watch them. But let's get into it. 3 DVD set, includes 12 episodes, TV 14 for violence, 300 minutes. Audio is English and Japanese 2.0, Dolby's and aspect is 16.9, and subtitles is English. Drop that. All right, what's next? Okay, yeah. So I did get the first season. I thought I only had where is it? Here we go. All right. So sorry about that. So my teen romantic comedy Snafu, season 1, complete collection. TBS Animation, Sentai Filmworks, Content Japan. Wow. This is only in Japanese with English subtitles. 3 DVD set, 13 episodes, 325-minute runtime, TV 14D for dialogue. Then Teen is also, oh my god, these are both only in Japanese. Wow. 26 episodes together for season 1 and season 2. However, season 2 is on Blu-ray, while season 1 is strictly just straight DVD. But that's crazy. I didn't even realize that was just it's Japanese only. Oh, good night. Thanks. Recover cucumber AMSR. Well, I'm trying to lose weight, so I might just have to take the cucumber with some ranch on the side. I might get on my beard and stuff. Oh, well, actually, you know what? Okay, with who asked and Slavinator, and also to you, Iron Spider. I'm not sure if you know about this, but I started a new YouTube series called The Manga Report, where I recommend titles on my YouTube channel. So I do 5 titles, first 3 episodes, and then on that following Friday or Saturday, we come to do a kind of like a book report type thing, like I just kind of talk about the titles and then what we liked about them and stuff like that for like 30 minutes on a live stream. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be doing episode 2, putting that up tomorrow. Europe, what is that? All right, no problem. Plug it. Plug it. Well, I don't think I have any links on here. I have them on my phone though. Where's my phone? Back here. So I could shamelessly plug myself on here through my own Twitch account. I need to record the next video actually. I'm working on it. Right now, I got the titles written down already for the next episode, but I just gotta actually put them together and edit it and then post it. Cheese Dead. Oh, thanks for the follow as well, Cheese Dead. I didn't even notice that you followed. Good looking out. Let's see, clip tray. Where is it? Here's the Discord. And here is the. This is the latest video. So we'll post that. Okay. All right. So, what did I say? Oh, I didn't even show it off. Where is it? Where was it? There it is. This is Mezzo. Some of you may have already seen Mezzo, or you may see Mezzo Forte. This is a story about a kind of like a detective agency. This has 13 episodes, clean opening, closing animation, and then ADV preview. So this is actually done by ADV Films. This is even technically, I guess Sentai Filmworks. I guess I don't know if maybe they merged with ADV Films, but this doesn't even have an Sentai Filmworks advertisement on it. But I got it in the summer sale. It's rated 325 minutes. Rated TV 14 for violence and dialogue. There's actually a lot of violence in that story. Let's see here. This is a title I have no idea about. It was lit again. This was a summer sale for Sentai Filmworks. You had to spend a certain amount of money to get like a discount or like free shipping. So this is a joint called Indian Summer. I have no idea what this is about, but it was cheap and it helped me reach the goal I needed to get my free shipping. So I may have to watch this to even know what's going on with this. This is DVD, so it's not even Blu-ray. It says Sentai Selects, so I guess this is one of their special. So I guess let's see. Okay, special features. It has a reversible cover. Next, clean opening and closing, and then again Sentai trailers. So trailers that are coming from Sentai Filmworks. It says includes. Wait a minute. Does that? I'm not reading this. Bro, there's only 3 episodes. This isn't even an OVA. It's just 3 episodes. 90 minutes, rated TVMA for suggestive themes. It's Japanese audio only with English subtitles. This is crazy. Well, all right, moving on. That's just, like I said, I really just got that because I needed to fill out my order. Here we go. Let's see. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 titles left in the box. So I'm just gonna get through these real quick. Well, not really quick. I'm gonna do the same thing I've been doing with all of them. But if there's anything else you want me to read into about them, maybe you want me to go back track some of the other titles I talked about, I can. Didn't really have any further plans for this video, so I'm just gonna start from this one. Actually, let's do this in order since these are the last ones. Let's do these ones in order. So this is limited edition Ajin box set 1. I might open this. Yeah, you guys want to see me open this sweet box set? Because otherwise I can't read anything. There's nothing on the box. Oh wait, lies. The lies we tell. Hold on, Netflix got this? I guess they did. All right, well, Netflix and Sentai Filmworks came together for 325 minutes for this box set 1. Audio is English, Japanese, and Spanish with English and Spanish subtitles. Now bad. This is Blu-ray and DVD combo set. Licensed solely for sale and viewing in the U.S. and Canada. This disc is intended to function solely on playback devices within USA and Canada. Some or all content and features may be unavailable in other regions. Based on the manga Ajin by Gamon Sakurai, originally serialized in the monthly Good Afternoon published by Kodansha Ltd. English language version, packaging, design, disc design, and menu navigation is done by 2017 copyright holding of Sentai Holdings LLC. Again, this is rated TVMA for violence and language. I do want to see what this is in here. Is this the manga? Hold on, I'm opening this, guys. I'm sorry. I gotta see what this is. Bro, I think this is the manga in here. I forgot what comes in here. Hold on, let me look at the invoice for the order. It doesn't say. I'm opening. I'm opening it. So, bam, break the seal, pull it out. I'm sorry, I gotta show this off. Wow, came with a Netflix original series, Ajin, uh, episode guide. Can you see that? Um, wow, this is kind of sick. Then it also comes with, wow, this is crazy. It comes with the book one of the manga. This is a sick. This is worth the money that I spent for this box set. Comes with the story. This is sick, bro. I'm wow. This is okay. As you can see, I'm pleased with my purchase. I was already happy about it because I like the series, but now that I'm seeing what's really in here, I'm super pleased with my purchase. Um, and just to kind of protect the integrity. So this is Ajin Demi-Humans limited edition box set number 2. So this is the second half with the completion. Oh crap, the plastic's already ripped on this. I was gonna try not to open this, but it's already open in a sense. Ah, dang it. Okay, well, I won't mess with it. So again, as you can see this beautiful artwork on here for the Ajin Demi-Human limited edition box set number 2, the Netflix original series. Uh, that one doesn't come with a manga, but it does come with an episode guide, it looks like, as well. Moving on to our next title. These are the last 3 titles in here. Let's do this one. Let's go size. We'll go smallest to largest. Okay, this is High School of the Dead box set. This is by Showgate and Sentai Filmworks. Let's see what is all in here. It includes complete TV series plus Drifters of the Dead OVA. I think that's the one where they're on the beach. Yo, what's up, Flaw? Let's see. Exclusive collector's edition extras, special booklet with illustrations and original short novels. Wow, a bandana? Whoa, I might have to use that for SakuraCon. Uniquely numbered static cling sticker, and then 4 postcards. Yes, hot D. 4 deluxe postcards, full size. Yeah, this full size bandana. Stickers, static cling stickers. Man, this is crazy. I might have to. I might have to break this bandana out for SakuraCon though. That'll be sick. Hold on, let's do the full panorama art. First they finished the series. You mean the anime, right? Because they started simul releasing the manga for a small period of time, but then there was like the tsunami hit, and then after that they just kind of just the production of it just kind of went down. I don't know if something happened to the mangaka or the production company, but um that was the last thing that I remember happening in regards to the creator or this that was going on with this the whole thing. What was going on with this? Because it was like episode chapter 30 was a simul release. Like they released it in English and Japanese for the manga. Like I don't know if I've ever heard that happening before on any other series, but that was pretty sick. All right, the author died though. So okay, so that's what happened. So the author did die. It was during the tsunami. So I said it was something to do like during the tsunami. Something happened with the author or the production company or something like that. But yeah, so in that regard, we probably will never see the end of High School of the Dead. But just know that next time you come over for my birthday fly, we'll probably watch that. How about that? Does that sound good? We'll watch the OVA together. All right, so moving on to the second to last item in this box. This is Chivalry of a Failed Knight box set. I might have to open this one up to really see what's inside here. Uh, Here's the front and back artwork there. Uh, so there's the Blu-ray, DVD, soundtrack, special booklet, and then there's a section that says extras. I'm gonna read the bottom of the box and see what I can figure out here. There, 300 minutes. It's a one CD, 51 minutes. So that's the soundtrack. Um, TV MA rating for violence, suggestive themes, and dialogue. But I can't really see what's the extras really. So unfortunately, this one I think I have to open this one. So bear with me in a second. I'll be right with you. All right, I am back. Okay, so Tale of Worst One, which is the, if I'm not mistaken, the raw translation of this title is A Tale of the Worst One. They just changed to the Chivalry of a Failed Knight. Um, so here is the special booklet for A Tale of the Worst One, front, back. Let's take a quick little gander in here. See what all we got. So episodes, character bios, glossary, Ikikuro Gane, Intetsu effects designs, Intetsu storyboard, Stella Vermilion, Leviathan effects design. So it looks like this is kind of like a the sketch. It's kind of the story. Okay, that's what it is. It's the episode storyboards, kind of the main talking points of each episode. That's kind of sick. Then there's artwork designs. Hold on, let me show you. Right, and then some character design work here. I think this is their bio. So it's their voice actors affiliation. Okay, yeah. So it shows you their voice actor. It shows you their like blood type. So no, their background or their art style. What grade school? Yeah, this is pretty sick. Oh wow, I might have to. I might have to go and practice drawing. They got the swords drawn out in here. What else is in here? Special effects and all that. Damn, they even got books drawn in here. Like, come on, who needs help drawing? Can I get some help drawing a book? So you have some storyboards for the driving of the story, action boards. This is actually pretty nice. Now the extras box. So don't actually know what's in this. Make sure I don't break it opening it. All right, what do we got in here? There is a banner in here of all the main girls. Let's see what else we got in here. Uh, oh, snap. That's right. There's a crest patch in here for my cosplay because I'm so big on cosplaying. What else is in here? Ooh, pins. See that? If you can. It's kind of reflective. Some pins. And I think these are postcards. See? That's it. So there's postcards, a poster, uh, some pins, and a patch for either cosplaying or just decorating like a tote bag or something like that. Along with the art book, which storyboards the main points of the show. This is actually pretty nice. All right, let's put it back in the box. All right. All right. Moving on to the last item in the summer sale grab that I ordered. So I ordered, like I said, it was summer 2019. Sentai Filmworks was doing a sale. I clicked on the link. I think it was like on Twitter. And then they were like, hey, if you spend a certain amount, your shipping will be like free or something like that. So I was like, okay, let's just throw some titles again. So I think out of all the titles that I went through today, I think Indian War was like the only title I had no idea what it was about. I just had to fill out my order and it was cheap. Probably because it's only 3 episodes. So this right here is, does anybody know what this is? Has anyone seen this before? No? Don't know what this is? This is the box set for Gate, and So They Fought. All right. Let's see what the special features are on this. Includes both Blu-ray and DVD, complete 24 episode series, 174 page hardcover booklet, a Roy replica axe. Okay, I know I'm taking that out. Art cards, an Empire flag, and a patch. So I could put this patch with the other patch and then make some weird double cosplay. TVMA 4, violent sexual language, suggestive themes and language. 625 minutes. Languages are audio English and Japanese, and then subtitles is English. I'm gonna open this because I want that axe. So this is the late. That's a late. The Gate. What's the Japanese translation? G10 Tatakai, something like that. Oh man, hold on. So let's get you into that opening action there real quick. Right. Oh man. Hold on. Another look. Like this. Right? You see it? Oh man, look at that. So again, I'm going in here for the axe. That's all I'm coming in here for. All right, hold on. Put the camera back up. So here's the booklet. What I want is the axe. So move that to the side there. All right. The Japanese, was it JGSDF? Japanese Gate Special Defense Force. Camp Alnus. How do I open this without damaging? Here we go. From the top, just like the other one. Where's my axe? I think it's this one. Oh my god. Look at this craftsmanship. Hold on, let's do like this. We're gonna do like a rolling credits. See it? Ooh, look at it. Oh man, this is sick. And it's purple, which is a dope color. So you're gonna keep this outside the box. We're gonna probably put it somewhere like on my dresser with my other figures. Oh, what if I gave it to my? Oh, if that was okay. I was gonna give it to my Ruby, but then I realized that my Ruby's the acrylic standee, so it's not an actual figure, so she can't hold it. But it was a good thought. Give my Rory axe. Oh, was this a banner? I thought it said it was a patch. This looks more like a flag. Hold on. Where's the box? Oh, yep, Empire flag. That's right. All right, here it is. The Gate patch. Yeah. And then here it is, the art cards. I'm not going to open these. I'm going to keep these in the package. But I am keeping this axe out. Everything else goes back in. Maybe I'll keep the flag. I don't know. But yes. So there you have it. These are the 30 titles that I picked up from the summer sale from Sentai Filmworks back in 2019. It was a good, I say it was fairly good buy. Uh, I'm pretty sure I'm eventually will enjoy these. I don't know, maybe like the next con or something. Like I said, I'll probably open up the High School of the Dead box and get the bandana out of it, uh, just to kind of accentuate my outfit for the evening. Um, so with that, what are you guys getting into tonight? Anything? Nothing? Nothing at all? Oh, I'm getting the messages from the followers that I just got just now on my email. So hold on, let's put my music back on. But you guys said you're done with that song, so I'll pick on a different song real quick. Let's cycle through. All right, let's put this one on. Let's see how long have I been up. I've been up for an hour. Ugh, I might have to end this and then come back and we do something else. Maybe I'll actually stream some gameplay. Want to do some Tekken? Actually, you know what? I have Code Vein. I haven't started playing it yet. Would you like to see me try Code Vein out? So yeah, I can do that. Oh wait, what the heck? Play the song. You're not asking you to extract. I'm just asking you to play. Play my song. Play my song. Play it. Play my song. It's loading now. And boom. Produced by Trench Boy, Japan. It's saying it's playing, but I don't really hear it. Do you? So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and shut it down for the night. For this anyway. I guess I want to thank you guys for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the summer 2019 unboxing video for the what you call it? I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, Sentai Filmworks summer sale. Uh, and I hope you look forward to future videos to come. Actually, I'm supposed to be recording my video for the manga report first. Then I'll probably, you know what? No, I'm just gonna stream. I'm gonna do some Code Vein. So signing off. Remember, as always, stay salty.